Got them all queued up here. I think everyone can hear us, but either way. Let's do this. We'll do it live. All right, let's cue it. And there we are.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Delta Phi. I wasn't with you last week, but I am back. Got myself and Random Task in the studio today. How you doing, bro?
Good, brother. Not quite as tanned as you in the squad, but I'm making it through. Testing out, actually messing around with Matic DeFi today. Finally used the Matic bridge.
Really?
Yeah, it takes a little while, but I think once you're on there, it's fast. But
how was your experience with the bridge? Because I've actually heard mixed things about that.
It's slow. I mean, I could see why people would be pissed about it. You load it up, it's an approval, then it's a transaction, and then it just kind of sits there, and whatever they're doing on the back end, it takes 8 to 20 minutes, and then you have a balance. And then to withdraw it back out of there through the POS validators, it takes like 3 hours.
Really?
Apparently.
So it's more so like getting out is the
getting in, getting out is a bit of a bottleneck right now, but I haven't actually done anything on it yet. I'm literally just loading it up before the stream today, so we'll see how it goes. My buddy told me about a little DeFi project there. I'm not going to name it because apparently I'm not allowed to crush the APY on day one, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm sure I'll talk about it next week if it starts printing.
You gonna farm it all back, or make it all back in one farm?
One farm. That's what I'm trying to do here. So that's kind of been my afternoon. What have you been looking at in the market?
Well, of course, the big news here, and it's funny because a lot of people made fun of this news, and a lot of people acted like this wasn't a significant event. But El Salvador has passed legislation to make Bitcoin legal tender in their country, it's my understanding that merchants will pretty much have to accept Bitcoin, which is really interesting. Blade Runner just said I'm still nursing a hangover. That's so true. So you guys just bear with me. I'm gonna power through it. But here's the thing about that that I don't think a lot of people realize, or maybe just the trolls are louder than the people that do realize this. But it's just a domino. It's the first domino in a string of many disenfranchised nations, and then maybe other countries that are looking to reduce their reliance on U.S. dollar. Coming in and saying like, hey, we want to go with Bitcoin. We want to go with something that a currency for our country that can't be manipulated. That can't be controlled. It is kind of an interesting situation because, I hear that the IMF is meeting with the president of El Salvador soon, and there's no way they're going to be happy about that. So, on the positive side of things, I mean, this could be like kind of the shot heard around the world. I understand the GDP of El Salvador is like, pretty much the same as the market cap of Dogecoin. But at the same time, like, the fact that this has happened is huge, and several other nations that have been disenfranchised are following suit. I saw maybe Brazil, Paraguay. I don't know them all off the top of my head, but this could kind of be the shot heard around the world. Now, the downside to that, that I'm thinking of at least, a lot of these countries are U.S. dollar reliant, and I am curious, if the fact that they are trying to essentially compete, or they're introducing a competing currency to the U.S. dollar. If that's going to have negative implications at some point, or is the IMF, are these big, world central banks, are they going to allow this to happen? Are they going to allow these nations to push forward into the future and to find prosperity, or are they going to come in and fuck things up? And I think that's something that's yet to be seen. Now,
that's
one more thing, though.
Yeah.
So apparently, they've got the, what is it, G7 or something this weekend? Is that what it's called?
It is a summit. Yeah, I don't know if it's this
There's a
weekend.
summit.
Yeah.
I think it's this coming weekend, and Joe Biden is supposed to speak on cryptocurrencies. So, I really do think while Bitcoin does look fantastic right now, and of course we have a new narrative for Bitcoin, new hope for Bitcoin. I do think that a lot of the price action, a lot of the temperament of the market over the coming, months is going to be potentially decided by what's actually discussed here. Is it going to be something positive? Is it going to be a nothing burger? Et cetera, et cetera. But, I would hope that, Joe Biden is forward thinking, for everybody that's come out, because of course we've just seen this onslaught of FUD. And for me, like, I always thought, like, hey, this FUD kind of feels like a conspiracy, because it's just been back to back to back to back to back. Last night, right after El Salvador passed this legislation on Bitcoin, literally 30 minutes later, guess who's there with the FUD piece? Bloomberg. Boom, like clockwork. The market starts going up, and then they drop more Elon FUD. About is Tesla selling more Bitcoin, even though, they said they weren't going to do it. So for me,
sad.
It's sad. And it really does just kind of throw, a wrench in what's going on. But, at the same time, it's just kind of like, I really, really do think that there's big ass money and, like interested in crypto now. I mean, after coming from Miami, I spoke to so many like big money real estate guys, that run their own like big real estate firms. And I spoke to hedge fund guys, and it was like insanely obvious that they really, really, really wanted to get exposure to this kind of stuff. And they were kind of at the research phase. There's still UI UX issues. There's still onboarding and on-ramp issues. And they are looking to get in. I mean, there's even bigger money than that on the sidelines. Some of these huge, renowned funds, Ray Dalio is talking about Bitcoin and stuff like that. And for me, it's just like, is there some kind of, Wizard of Oz, like puppet master, back there with just massive money that, is an incumbent in the traditional markets that's like saying, hey, we're going to flood Bitcoin into the ground, and that's when we're going to come in and we're going to buy at a reasonable price. It does make you wonder.
It's all fishy. It's all been fishy for a while now. And with the, it's kind of just the way it goes, right? We're up and up and up, and all of a sudden all these analysts have an opinion about how Bitcoin's going to 100K. And then things roll over, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, 20 different stories come out that are bad for Bitcoin. I mean, it's not new. It's still painful. And when I was new back in 2017, it like scared the shit out of me. I was a little less concerned with it this time. One of the things I talked about in the newsletter yesterday was sort of what you were just talking about. Will this backfire? Because one thing we know about the U.S. and other big countries is that they like to control the world through sanctions and aid. And so if Central American countries like El Salvador want to get out from under their thumb, and they're going to use that and maybe try to bypass some of those with things like Bitcoin, it may be the case where, the U.S. just comes in and says, well, we can't have that. We need our control back. And so that they come and put in sanctions on those countries and say, until you take Bitcoin off the balance sheet, you're going to be sanctioned again. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, for now, it's super bullish. There's no two ways about it. It's a country saying, we are going to make this legal tender. We're going to have this on our balance sheet. We're going to allow people to basically interact with the US dollar through our central bank. That's huge.
That's huge. Were you by chance listening to the, I think it was Nick Carter had a...
I heard about that. I wasn't listening.
Space. Yeah. I popped in there for about 30 minutes, and the president of El Salvador was in there. Everybody was, for the most part, well behaved, and being respectful as you would to a president of a country. But he was extremely intelligent, extremely forward. It just made me think, we're sitting here in the United States with Joe Biden, who, he can't fucking remember what he's, talking about 10 minutes ago. And, you've got, this impoverished, disenfranchised nation that has a millennial age president with fresh ideas, and, he's vibrant and intelligent, and it's just crazy, looking at that. And and then looking at, what we have in some of these developed countries. We've got these dinosaurs that are still at the helm. But I
like
wish
the
them
story.
best. And, yeah, it's a great story.
You read about that president. He's new. He's young. There was a ton of corruption in their country, and they basically came in and said, fuck you guys. We threw them all in jail. And now he's trying to take a turn for something a little more digital, a little more, maybe in touch with the current times. So, for all the people that are like, he's a dictator and all this stuff, I'm not buying it yet. Of course, there are examples of how that starts. And then you get the big popular vote, and you come in and you sweep everyone out. Then you never relinquish power, and it gets ugly. Maybe, but it hasn't done it yet. And for now, everything I see just looks like he's trying to bail his country out of a terrible place. I mean, they've got the highest per capita murder rate in the world.
He's trying to turn the ship around.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine growing up in that kind of environment and then, you're put in a position to do something about it? It really is an inspiring story. And it's really cool. So they're doing a couple of things. People asked about, how are they going to avoid, people being exposed to the volatility of Bitcoin? And they're actually setting up a $150 million trust. And the government itself is going to kind of act as a buyer of last resort. And basically they're going to give merchants that accept Bitcoin. And I think, I don't know exactly how they're going to handle it, but I think through their wallet, their portal that they're developing, you're going to have the ability to convert through the government to a fiat currency, I guess dollars or something else. Instantly, but they're going to handle all of that. It's not something you have to worry about at all. And another thing, somebody asked them about, the clean energy and stuff like that. He was talking about how they have, abundant geothermal energy. They have active volcanoes. And it's really cool. I actually just saw, the president tweet out a picture, and they had tapped into a new vent and event capable of producing like 95 megawatts of clean geothermal energy. So, I am wondering like if them doing that and them bringing in, this, because I mean, it's great that they are accepting Bitcoin as legal tender, but you still have to understand like these people are incredibly impoverished. So like it's almost like a situation to me to where like this really opens the doors to a lot of crypto money to come into the country, a lot of innovators to come into the country. Justin Sun said he was going to set up an office in the country. And, of course, everybody's all mad and shit about that. The way I see it is like, let the crypto money come into the country. Let these people get there and build their mining centers and run it off this clean energy. It creates jobs for these people. Let Justin Sun come in and build his center, his office in El Salvador. That's jobs, that's education. And even then, of course, we all love our Ponzi's, and we love Ethereum DeFi and Tron DeFi and Solana DeFi and Matic DeFi. And it doesn't fucking matter what it is, but Justin Sun can actually come in and build some pretty interesting tools for these people, if that's his motive, if he has a drive to do so. And the Tron network is super cheap. I mean, I already think that the Tron network is one of the primary like rails for USDC transfers.
Yeah, it's free. I worked with a guy, I think he was in Bangladesh, and he's like, yeah, please send it over Tron because it's free. And I was sending him like $100, so Ethereum didn't make any sense. And that was the first time I was like, okay, in a practical sense, whatever they're doing, I know Tron gets a lot of hate. I don't really know why. I'm sure it's something to do with their code or their centralized,
it's a centralized, EVM fork.
But it's fast and it's free, and that's what people who don't give a shit about the tech really want. They just want something that works for what they need. So let's pull up the charts. One thing I noticed that I loved this week that should not be sort of under respected, we got to show this respect, is we had a real shift in news just yesterday where a couple more of those BS FUD pieces came. The market maybe 5-minute candle down and then moved up. And then a couple positive things came out, Interactive Brokers coming up with crypto in Q4. Obviously, El Salvador signing the bill. And
it's been a while, man. It's been a while since I've seen any positive news.
Yeah.
And you're right. It was a shift.
So it was great. And so the price very clearly today shifting its reaction. Let me just see if I can get us over here. I hope our sound stays in. I'm sure it's the same on the shop, but let's double check. So, this is the weekly on Bitcoin. And bears have been in control really for a couple of weeks now, according to the volume profile, or the volume here. You can see the bears starting to wake up all the way back here in January. Obviously, easy to ignore that, but after a little while, you're like, where the hell are the buyers? So we've rolled over. We're sitting at weekly support, and we've just got doji, maybe a hammer here, whatever it is, but price does not seem to want to go down. It had every excuse. Let me pull up. Got one other chart here. It's on my main screen. Let me pull it over. Price had every excuse yesterday to break down. There was, shitty sentiment. I'm sure some kind of new little FUD story came out.
Dude, the system was miserable. And, I understand, like, our Twitters are echo chambers, right? But at the same time, you look at guys on Twitter that are experienced market participants. And, even myself, like, I was feeling this sentiment. I was just looking at this, like, damn, this is so negative.
I guess we're going down, yeah.
I guess we are going to 18K, People were saying I'm echoing now.
Okay, so this is what happened with Rob. We were great on the main shot.
Okay.
This shot changed it. Okay, guys, we got the echo. So hold on a sec. We're just going to go back here. Retreat! And
oh, wow, I am echoing like mad.
No, you should be fine now. Like, it's back to where we were, and I haven't changed anything else.
Well,
so no charts today.
Yeah, I don't think I'm still echoing. Yeah, it is kind of ironic that I said echo chamber and
yeah,
then the
that's
echo
okay.
effects. That was on purpose, guys. That was on purpose.
It up, man.
We're working with some new special effects. I hope you guys enjoyed that. It was pretty cool.
So I've got to figure out then quietly, maybe while you take the reins here, but the same thing with Rob last week. Studio shot, perfect. The next shot, echo. So
that's so strange.
Talk some shop here for a second. I'm going to just plug away here on the back end and see if I can fix that, because that's bullshit.
So I just want to say, I actually saw a really, really good article, or not article, a tweet thread yesterday. Let me try to find it. I believe I retweeted it. All right, so I've just found it, and it was a tweet thread by Spartan Black. And for those of you that don't know who Spartan Black is, he is a partner at the Spartan Group. Very big, very well respected crypto VC fund. We're talking these are some of the bigger guys in crypto VC, and I think they're one of the better ones as well. But he said something really, really interesting, and I'm just going to read this. So he said, there's a few things worth noting. And he said, during this cycle, we didn't get the blow off top that we typically get in a euphoric bull market, which means that the valuations weren't significantly detached from reality. And I thought that was really interesting. He's the first person that I've seen mention that perspective. And when we go back and we look at 2020, it went parabolic. We had that parabolic rise. We had a blow off after a parabolic rise. So the actual valuations, during that parabolic rise, were significantly detached from reality. And, I think that's one of the things that led to this, extended bear market, 80% drawdown on Bitcoin, et cetera, et cetera. And he said that this cycle, it brought institutional participants into the market. Now, here's the meme, right? Everybody thought these institutions were going to come in. They thought these institutions were going to be the strongest hands, right? These guys are never selling, right? But here's the thing. Institutions, according to Spartan Black, have different definitions of what good returns are. In other words, they're not batting for 1,000% returns, but are rather quite satisfied with 100% returns. He says that's incredibly heroic. This means that they're likely to take profits earlier and more frequently, but also less likely to step back, or more likely to step back in when they perceive that the correction has gone on too much. This may explain why we didn't see the blow off top, but it also means that the drop probably won't be as severe as previous cycles. So instead of a typical 80% plus drop, we may end up with 50 to 70%. And this is how crypto markets become less volatile over time, and the returns from the asset class also become less spectacular, but still much higher than most other asset classes. So I really enjoyed that take. If you guys want to check it out, you can go look at my Twitter profile. I retweeted the whole thread. Of course, I'm not going to read the whole fucking thing because that's just boring. but it was an interesting perspective, and I know Suzu has taken a lot of heat for his super cycle take. But for me, without being, a hype man, without getting too crazy about it, this is exactly what the super cycle is. This is what the super cycle means, that we've got big boy money here. They're not just here to pump this shit, exit back the dollars and exit the ecosystem. These are guys that come in, they buy fucking big, they buy with conviction, they take profit eventually. And then when the dip gets too much, they buy back in again. It's kind of a rinse and repeat process. It is an interesting take, and it did make me wonder, like, what is a fair valuation for Bitcoin now? What is a fair valuation for some of these productive assets? And I understand too that productive assets have almost become a meme in a sense that in a lot of ways, these productive assets didn't perform as well as the meme coins and things like that. Now, of course, a parabolic meme coin is an extreme divergence from actual value, right? And I do think that when you're looking at things that went parabolic in February, March, April, May even, I do think that those things are in for more pain than some of these DeFi protocols that, as a lot of people pointed out, and it was really interesting. We had so many DeFi protocols that are productive assets, that do have healthy treasuries, that do have growing user bases, that are used widely, that pumped and went fucking sideways for 3 months. They developed this swing failure point on the highs, and that's before Bitcoin dumped, and everybody was like, including myself, DeFi looks great, because it did. We had these 3-month ranges, we broke to the upside, right? I mean, that was the holy grail. Like, let's fucking go. That was accumulation. It's time to make new highs. It's time to see what DeFi has. And it almost felt like it was time for DeFi to have that rotation. And now we are, sitting below those horizontal ranges. So for me, it does make me wonder, are DeFi or things like that, in this same kind of category, to where I know for a fact there is this institutional interest in DeFi. And of course, I went to a fucking conference in Miami, and, the big news was Sam. Sam's arena, Sam's party. Sam brought the fucking noise. I talked to a lot of guys that were very interested in getting into DeFi in particular. They thought that was the next big wave. And looking at these DeFi assets, how far are these DeFi assets going to pull back, right? I mean, are they going to pull back, 90%, as we've seen altcoins do time and time again? Are these DeFi assets just going to pull back 50%? Are they going to pull back 60%? I mean, this is just something that's kind of up in the air for now. But it is interesting. We still have EIP 1559 coming for Ethereum. That's just about a month away now. We have Arbitrum, which has been deployed. Now it's in a developer beta. It is live on mainnet. But what that means is that we actually have this entire layer 2 ecosystem right now, true L2 for Ethereum, being built out. All right, am I echoing? Let's
No,
see.
I think I found it, dude. The screen capture defaulted to capturing system audio, which is new for the PC. It didn't do it on my Mac.
Okay.
That's why.
Yeah, I'm not echoing. But we're having this entire layer 2 ecosystem right now being built out on Arbitrum, and it's not accessible yet to the public. So it does make me wonder, when we're talking about another big DeFi boom, you guys know me, that's primarily what I'm invested in. That's primarily what I cover. I do think that we have some really, really nice catalysts for that. Now, obviously, we're, for the first time in a while, seeing, Ethereum starting to lose some steam to Bitcoin. And that's very obvious. If you look at that Ethereum Bitcoin chart, it almost, we saw this really nice parabolic rise in that Ethereum Bitcoin ratio. And it almost kind of, at this point, looks like a complacency shoulder on Ethereum Bitcoin, unless things change. Now, a lot of people are upset, of course, because the sharding aspect, the sharding.
Every time I hear that.
Right. I'm too immature. I just can't. The sharding aspect of Ethereum 2.0 has actually been postponed to 2022. But I think the migration to proof of stake, I think, is still on track for later this year. And of course, EIP 1559 makes Ethereum a challenger to Bitcoin in an entirely new way. Now Ethereum isn't just digital oil, but now Ethereum can actually kind of encroach on this store of value narrative that Bitcoin, has pretty much monopolized until this point. But it is really interesting. What's your take on that chart?
Glad you brought it up. This is actually what I was, again, in the newsletter yesterday, like probably the most important chart in crypto, or at least the most interesting to me. Because there was this kind of sense of like, well, for sure Ethereum's going to dominate, for sure load up on Ethereum, and that's been the play. But this was not looking good. Coming up into these short reload zones, I'm always looking for signs of weakness, looking for a trade. There might be a short trade, blah blah blah. And when you get this kind of bearish divergence, when you get sort of a lack of bulls on the volume, and you just see kind of, you can see here that the taller candles are all red. So that's saying the bears are in control, and then you get up here and it just fails. Now, yesterday I thought, is this an SR flip? Did we just reclaim this level and now it's going to be green and we're just taking off? That's cool. That's the key breakdown level. But when it failed this morning, I just thought, oh, shit. So for two reasons. One, that's great. That's not great for altcoins. But for two, it didn't really give me my entry. Like, obviously, once that fails, I want to get my retest before I get in. So if we squeeze back up here, if there's any juice in this thing, that's an auto short for me. And that's, it's not all that bad. I mean, obviously, you zoom out a bit, like Ethereum's had a real good time. And I think drawing up some kind of consolidation like this with a little fib pong and then back into like a smaller short reload zone like that's not that bad. But that's what I'm looking at. And that's sort of my thesis around Bitcoin in general. I've got this here. That's what we were just talking about before the show. My chart's on the main screen today. So here's Bitcoin dominance. And so you look at ETH, BTC, you say, okay, that drives dominance for the most part. It's looking a little bearish. What's Bitcoin dominance doing? Well, it just bounced off a key weekly level. Huge bounce. Biggest move up really since ever. I mean, since like back in January. And now it's kind of down into this short reload or this reload zone, and it's starting to move up again. So I would not be shocked. In fact, I would be shocked if we don't see Bitcoin take some dominance back here. And you're kind of hearing it in the narrative too, right? How many countries adopted Ethereum this week, right? Like
I haven't heard of any.
There needs to be an ebb and flow in the market. And you're going to, I really think that Bitcoin dominance will eventually just live below 20%. And I really think that even at 100K, whatever it's going to hit. But along the way, there's going to be these ebb and flows. Even in 2017, right? You get long on alts in May 2017, you're flying. You're up to the moon, and then it just washed out. And alts were actually kind of shit for the most part until all the way out in December 7th, where they kind of bottomed, and then they went absolutely ballistic. And all through that, especially September, October, November, Bitcoin was the talk of the town. And people's Bitcoin balance was dropping heavily. Maybe their alts were like flat with USD or whatever, but they were just like bleeding out Bitcoin value in their portfolio. We haven't seen that since January. So obviously up here, I'm thinking maybe, nope, big drop down. But now I'm thinking like more than ever.
You know what's really interesting about this dominance chart is when you look at it, the meat of that move, right, occurred from, I'd say, early April until the middle of May, right?
Yeah.
And that huge drop in dominance wasn't driven by DeFi at all. If anything, DeFi, especially against Ethereum, suffered during Ethereum's latest run. And, one of the interesting things about that is in the past, when Ethereum versus Bitcoin had performed, DeFi performed very well. But looking at, when did DeFi capture, any bit of dominance? It was really from, early January to early February. And then it was just kind of stagnant ever since. So, even though we did see, dominance go from, 60 to 40, right? That drop in 20 percentage points wasn't DeFi. Yeah.
It was really ETH. Value. And ETH was on such...
Really ETH. ADA, ETH, Doge, like we had,
some higher cap shitters, but like Ethereum really dominated through that. I mean, there was nothing that could keep up with it because it was such a powerful move off such a key weekly level. Let's see if I can pull it up here on the weekly. That they're, who, like everyone, after this Livermore cylinder thing broke, I mean, it was just like, you're not trading your ETH away for anything. You're dumping everything to get into that move. And so nothing really survived versus Ethereum. I doubt even ADA and Doge outperformed Ethereum there. I don't know if they have pairs. Probably do somewhere, but
I don't think, I mean, there's no way.
Ethereum went full Bitcoin right here. Like, that's the easiest way to put it. It was like the kind of smackdown you see across the board when Bitcoin goes ham. But it happened against Ethereum.
It is interesting. I'm looking at ADA right now, and of course it's drawn down, like everything else is. But we're still sitting at $1.57 with ADA. And honestly, I don't even know what the fuck to make of this chart. When I'm looking at it, the structure is so strange.
Versus USD.
Yeah, if you look at it versus USD, it's just a strange looking chart. To me, and it's kind of, it has its parabolic legs, but it's also got some really weird structure, at least locally. Now, a lot of the people that I spoke with at that conference, that were coming in that were interested in crypto, they were interested in ADA. I think ADA has captured a lot of that normie like narrative, like, okay, I want to buy the next Ethereum, I want to buy the next big thing.
And it's cheap.
There's significant interest in ADA.
Yeah, it used to be a penny token, even when it still had a fairly sizable cap. So yeah, I was talking to someone the other day about this, like, what the hell has ADA done for marketing? Because fail none, when I run into a normie buddy or somebody who's like, hey, I heard about crypto, XRP's cool, Doge is cool, ADA is cool. Like, it's always in that top 3 after Bitcoin and Ethereum. Doge obviously more recently, but even like through last year, my buddy was like, yo, let me tell you about this new coin I heard about called ADA. And I'm like, yeah, I've heard of it. It's shit. And that's been my opinion, but I personally haven't even looked into it. It's more just like people I respect that know these things have told me, like, it's vaporware, there's nothing there. But they are doing something right, because everyone who's anyone and gets into crypto hears about them in like the first 10 minutes. So I don't know, and I'm ready to be wrong. Like, if they just come out and they do run fast and they do run cheap and they're fairly decentralized and super secure, like, I could be wrong. It would not be the first time.
It's only 36% off the highs right now, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look great. It's still above a key level, so I wouldn't count it out yet until it kind of loses this. I mean, you can lower that down a little bit.
Dogecoin is an interesting chart right now as well. We're sitting 54% off the highs. Of course, the head and shoulders meme is definitely out in full force.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of Doge. I mean, it's the kind of thing where I just passed on it so many times. Even when like buddies of mine, like OG in the space who's been mining, in 2014 and stuff, and he was just like, load up on Doge. Like, he was talking about it all last year. He's like, it will pump. It always does. It's just the meme. I don't even think he thought it would pump this hard, but it was like an automatic, at like 20 sats.
I mean, shit, if anybody, if we knew, like, we would have just gone all in on that shit.
All in Doge.
Here's the thing. Like, I can't believe I thought that this time was any different. Like, the reality is, in terms of shitcoins, like, this space hasn't grown up much at all. We're still pumping memes and this and that, but even then we're doing the same thing in traditional markets. We're pumping fucking GameStop and AMC, and I guess that's just how
my problem repeatedly is that I'm just a snob. So I think like, oh, I'm investing in value, I'm investing in good projects, I'm buying things that are innovative, and so I see things like, Doge and Shinu Iba and whatever. And even, especially Shinu and some of these other ones, like, it's like, okay, put everything aside. This is just the way this is going to work. There's going to be a liquidity cycle. There's going to be echo, pumps. And I guess, I just got caught too much with being a bit of a snob. So
I will say that Doge Bitcoin chart looks like a complacency shoulder, as well. We have a lower high. There, there's a second lower high, which is really interesting. I'm wondering, and we're seeing those MAs kind of converge there. Like, I'm wondering if that's one of the things that rolls over against Bitcoin and gives back some of that dominance, that it took. Yeah. Because what's the market cap of Dogecoin now? It's fucking ridiculous.
I just assume billions. And
Dogecoin is the number 6 cryptocurrency. and I believe it was higher ranking at one point, with a $44 billion market cap.
Jesus.
Now, wow. And here's the thing, and of course, Ethereum did make up, for a lot of that rise or a lot of that drop in dominance, but we're looking at 44 divided by 300. So Dogecoin is around roughly 15% of the market cap of Ethereum. And now we're looking at Cardano, which is roughly around 15% of the market cap of Ethereum, and Binance Coin as well, and XRP. And I don't think XRP really did much of anything this cycle, right? At least
not yet. I mean, it had a really
nice
rally earlier this year that we caught from like 28 cents. That was awesome, to about 70 cents. But then, and then it did have another run with the Wall Street bets kind of post, Elon.
Look, the chart definitely fucking pumped, but it wasn't, your classic like holy fucking shit, XRP is melting faces.
I mean, it wasn't like a new all-time high, next cycle kind of pump. I'll just tell you one thing before we move off this Dogecoin chart. The one thing you don't want to see now. Keep in mind, I'm a crypto boomer. Apparently, I've been wrong about Doge the whole way. Not like I was saying it won't go up. I'm not going to long it because I can't tell how to fucking value this thing. But you don't want to see volume just disappear. And if you look here, I mean, clear as day on the daily versus Bitcoin, Doge volume, it's making slightly lower highs. I think this was actually a slightly higher high by a couple sats, but there's no real interest. And so we could chill here, and then there's a big breakout of volume and we go higher. But until I saw that, I'd be concerned with, taking any big or long positions up here. For now, it is just kind of consolidating. So you can say there's some kind of compression happening up here. But with the volume falling off, I wouldn't touch this thing with a 10-foot pole until I see, and that's the downside of that is like, well, what, you're going to wait for a big breakout on volume? It's like, well, at least then I know that we're going to leg up, and that's probably a massive leg. But for now, it just looks like it's tired, and it should be tired. This dog's been running, so
it's got to be tired. I mean, here's the thing: like the inflation of Dogecoin is fucking insanity, and I would imagine that the people mining Doge are going to prop this shit up as long as they can, milk it for everything it's worth. It's inevitable at some point that Doge is going to come down in a big way, in my opinion. And of course, I was incredibly wrong about Dogecoin. So don't take that as any significant opinion. But I'm still, I'm looking at this and I'm like, there's no way in the world that doesn't end in absolute like tears and mayhem, and like it always does.
That's how I feel about it. My buddy called. He said, I'm getting into crypto. I've got $800 I want to play with, but I've got $1,800 that's like all in on XRP and Doge, and I'm not touching it. And this was like 3 weeks ago. This was before the big drop, and I just said, ooh, like, you're gonna learn fast. He's like, what? Those are bad? I was like, no, it's just the market's a little overheated, and those are just two of the meme kind of entry coins. Said I'd be careful, maybe learn a little more and then whatever. But anyways, I don't think he sold, and I hope he's well. But having said that, after that day, I think it was right around here, and then Doge like popped up to 57. So I don't know. I hate giving people like ideas and advice. Like I think last year, I won't even name the coin, but I have buddies that work there still, but I told my buddies about this coin, and I was like, yeah, this one's definitely a lock for next cycle, and it is still just abysmal. It hasn't moved at all. They missed everything if they bought it, so I don't do that shit anymore. I learned that lesson. Now, maybe somebody watching who has gone on to Matic and messed around a bit, used the bridge, can help me out live and direct right here, because as we were loading up the stream, I sent some DAI over the bridge, and it arrived in my wallet, all good, great. I go to QuickSwap, and then I try to pull up DAI, and it's showing 0. I'm like, that's concerning. And it made me add DAI as a custom token. So it's like I have this other weird DAI that's not being read as the official one. So I was kind of freaking out. I was like, did I buy scam DAI? But apparently it's the real stuff. It's just not being read. So I don't know. Fun fact. That's what I was sweating at the start of the stream. And you're here. I was like, is that like 5 figures of scam tokens sitting in my new Polygon wallet? We'll see. But I got to check that out after the stream. I'm excited by the idea of Matic DeFi. I think one of the things that really turned me away from ETH DeFi, and I got really into it last year with farming and share token and algo stablecoins, was the fees. and just the slow, trashy, expensive general nature of the experience. So I'm officially loaded back up. We're gonna give it a shot here on Matic, and I'll keep you posted on that next week.
Matic, I definitely think Matic is still interesting. But I do also think, and I could be totally wrong about this, that Matic DeFi is for, while it may perform, well in the, short, maybe even short to medium term, I think it's kind of a dead man walking. And here's why, at least in, I'd say medium term. We have these true layer 2 solutions. Like I said, we have Arbitrum, all of that infrastructure is being built out. Arbitrum is super cheap. It's secured by the actual Ethereum network. It's not just an EVM compatible, like side chain that exists outside of Ethereum. Like, this is true L2 for Ethereum. So I am curious, are we moving towards a future to where those true L2s, accrue all of the liquidity, all of the value in DeFi, and then we just use Ethereum as a settlement layer, for those things? Is Arbitrum bearish for Matic, or are the two things able to coexist? Are they able to kind of have their own niches? Even then, Matic with even Arbitrum's like 100 times more gas efficient, right, than just straight base layer Ethereum. But even then, Matic's still cheaper than Arbitrum. So it does make me wonder, when we do see Arbitrum opened up to the public, is it going to be a situation to where that's bearish for Matic? Or do they just continue to does it spark like a renewed interest in this stuff, or what? I don't know.
I think, first of all, I think there is a ton of room out there in general. There's tons of capital, tons of users. Ethereum, 1.0 can't handle them all. We've seen that. So now these L2s are popping up, and people will choose their flavor, and people will choose their team, and there'll be some tribalism, and people will say this one's better than that. But at the end of the day, I think there's so much potential. And then even, 5 L2s could take off, and then Solana can take off, and Binance Smart Chain, and Cardano. And they'll still probably get some pretty sick TVLs built up over the next few years. I don't think it's going to be a be-all, end-all of one. And that's why I find the tribalism kind of silly in general, when you have people that are like, ETH is the future. No, it's MySpace. It's going to die. It's like, well, even if Solana comes along and is faster and cheaper, which it is and will be, they can use Ethereum as a settlement layer, which I believe is happening on Hxro Network, where it'll still interact on a certain degree, and it's a little more secure, maybe a banking layer for something that you don't need as high throughput. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm interested in these new sort of L2s that you've been talking about. I've been keeping an eye on them. I think we just invested in one that's built. I forget the name of the layer 2, but it's not Matic. It's like some other one.
What's really interesting is, these true layer 2s, which settle on Ethereum, they don't have tokens. They're just infrastructure, that's built out. So I will say this, and here's the bull case, right, for Matic. There's always two sides to this. So, of course, I've already gone over the bear case, but to summarize, it's secured by the actual Ethereum blockchain, right? Much, much, much higher degree of trust and security than something like BSC, like Matic, which you could argue are kind of like layer 2s for Ethereum. But here's the thing about Matic is Matic has the ability to provide incentives for DeFi on their layer 2, whereas something like Arbitrum does not. So I am wondering, we're still in this growth phase. If you look at a lot of the hyper growth that's occurred in the DeFi space, it's been incentivized. There's crazy yields to be had and incentives, that people can chase. Arbitrum, maybe these protocols that are building out on Arbitrum, do provide some level of incentives, but, Matic has the ability to say, hey, come use Aave on Matic, and we're going to give you insane yield, for borrowing and lending, using that protocol that's been established on Matic. Arbitrum, Optimism, they can't do that. So that's definitely something, that Matic has as an advantage over something like Arbitrum, over something like Optimism.
Look, and if those two come in, yeah, I mean, if they come in and they just ease the bandwidth on Ethereum, and that's great. It doesn't sound like there's many ways you can invest or be a part of that growth and bet on them. But if they want to come in and just spread the love and ease the bandwidth, I'm cool with that. Yeah, I have no issue with the other ones.
I think it's mainly a play, like if you did want exposure, per se, to Arbitrum, to Optimism, I think that those things in particular are going to be very bullish for Ethereum DeFi as a whole. So, you could get in, you could buy, like DeFi Pulse has an index, that's comprised of several leading DeFi protocols. You could come in, and you could just, of course, go with the blue chips, Aave, Synthetics, things like that. Get exposure to things potentially undervalued, like Bancor. Actually really interesting. Apparently Mark Cuban he bought a little bit of Bancor, like $100,000 worth. It's not significant to him by any means, but still interesting and something that's definitely developing. So, we're going to try to follow this as closely as possible, for everybody watching. Hopefully as this progresses, we'll have more amazing takes and updates for you regarding this. Now, Random Task has just pulled up, and it's funny you pulled this up because I actually wanted to ask you about this earlier. Yeah. The BTC USD shorts chart on Bitfinex, and part of me is like, I mean, shorts are skyrocketing, right? Ever since the Bitcoin price started to rise again. Ever since we started to have a bit of a narrative shift for Bitcoin, started seeing a little bit of positive news for the first time in weeks and weeks and weeks. And somebody is just going balls deep short on Bitcoin. I mean, this is big shorts. Now, the scary thing is, and it happened so fast too. I mean, this is conviction. They came on fucking heavy. I don't know what they're doing, if they're hedging spot. I mean, it's impossible to know the motives behind these guys.
That's
but the last time it happened, we saw a 30% drop rapidly for Bitcoin. Now, part of me was like, oh, fuck this dude. Let's squeeze him, right? Let's make him cover his shorts. Let's make him pay. But, another part of me, I'm still a bit paranoid here. Like, I don't quite feel like we're out of the water just yet.
So, yeah, the last time Bitcoin shorts popped on that chart was right here on the 17th, just before, the big dump. And then, they closed instantly. So, whoever that was, maybe a different person. You never know. Obviously, the chances are it's not the same person. And now they are shooting up again. Now, before we get into that, I just want to point out, this chart cannot be ignored. Now, I was on Twitter, I was loading up here some bull tokens, some spot BTC. I got stopped out on that, and I felt dirty about it last night. I was going to bed. I was like, bullish divergence, didn't nuke, kind of reclaimed. And as I was falling asleep last night right here at 32.5, I was like, God, I really want to go to sleep like this. I should load up and just risk to the lows. And I did load a little, and I set bids on the rest, just down here. Okay, long story short, I'm back long on Bitcoin spot. And this cannot be ignored. How strong this is. When you lose that pennant, again, every excuse in the world to break down. Price could have just, rugged and gone all the way below, 28, whatever. And it reclaimed with strength. We're seeing the first buy volume come in what seems like weeks. Highest buys. Reclaimed this pennant, retested this morning, and is now just moving up. So all that said, that is very strong. That is not it's limping back up to resistance. It's reclaimed a major structure that it had no business reclaiming if it was bearish. So I just want to start with that. Now, the thing that causes me some concern is that we are now seeing somebody take a major short position on Bitfinex. And like you said, that could be somebody who just loaded up a shitload of Bitcoin and now they're hedging it. That is a lot of what leverage trading and those kind of derivatives products is used for, to offset risk. It could be somebody who is balls long on some other exchange and is now shorting here, and they've got some other spread strategy. There's so many explanations for this. It could end up just playing out as psyops, where you're like, oh, whoever that was loading up those shorts, they stopped me from longing. I don't know how to read this consistently enough. I don't know, like you said, the details on the back end of this. There are so many explanations for it. They could be super underwater on this short, which they probably are today. And then, but they're long and up a little more on some other exchange. I have no idea. So all I know is to look at this chart and say that we have been, first of all, in a big old bull market. We had a large drawdown from the highs, not something you typically see. 55% from the highs is insane to say, and we're still in a bull, right? Like 55, I'd say, wow, maybe shit, we're not. But then you drop down like this, and then,
that's a big pullback.
It's a big pullback. It's a big bounce today. I cannot sleep on like the significance of this up move. And now this, this. I mean,
55% is a lot, and it does make me wonder, when I was talking about the Spartan Black's tweet earlier, how far had, Bitcoin diverged from fair value, considering that we didn't have a situation where Bitcoin went, into this parabolic top. And of course, when you look at the chart, like, I can adjust the scale and everything, and, it looks parabolic, but at the same time, like when I speak about like a parabolic rise, like I'm talking 2017, like BTFD by the fucking dip was the biggest meme ever. And you know why it was a meme? Because every fucking time you got in there and you bought the dip when that shit pulled back 40%, like it was just off to the fucking races eventually. But looking at that, like that shit was up there rounding for months,
3 months.
It didn't end in euphoria. How about that? It just kind of ended in tears. Now, is that a letdown, or is that a sign that the market has matured, that we do have these institutional players? Now, I'm going to read three tweets from another guy. This is Jeff Dorman. For those of you that don't know Jeff, he's the CIO of Arca. Arca is a big hero investor. Tons of respect for this guy. Super, super smart. And he said, in December 2018, the bear market ended when the cavalry arrived. Lubin, Novogratz, and others started tweeting, calling for the bottom. Per my tweet yesterday, it doesn't take much of a catalyst for a bottom to form. The market was out of sellers weeks ago. It just hadn't found buyers yet. Now, he said all market sell-offs have 4 stages. Stage 1, traders take profits. Buyers don't see a top yet. Stage 2, liquidations and forced selling. Stage 3, that's retail panic, fear and greed index below 10, kind of what we've been seeing recently. And he said stage 4, which is Momo/shorts, push the market lower until the cavalry arrives. Buyers strike, but with no real sellers left. Now, Jeff thinks that we've been at stage 4 for weeks. He said stage 4 ends when the buyers come back. Momentum guys stop selling. Shorts start to cover. Confidence comes back. It can take days, weeks, months, or years for markets to go back up, depending on the severity of the sell-off and the asset class, but it stops going down. So, I mean, there are like all of these things pointing to the fact that the bottom very well could be in. I am seeing a bit of confidence return to the market, obviously, because like you said, we broke this pennant to the downside. We very easily could have just gone to 27, 28K, whatever the fuck, any of these guys, like whatever the target was. We very easily could have pursued further downside right there, but we didn't. And that's really, really interesting. And I think that it's significant in that is a shift in what has been going on. Because what has been going on is, there's more downside. Like we broke down, like we're going to go down. And that's just, it's been the situation around here.
Yeah, and there was a really significant shift for the first time in a while. Actually, I was trading the lower time frames today, not really even actively trading them, but watching them. And it was a buddy of mine posted an article that the new China province that was kicking miners out came right at the same time that there was a story out of China that 1,100 people were arrested in some kind of nasty illegal thing to do with crypto, and that was this candle here. And so that hit, and I looked left, and I was like, "Holy shit! Like, there's your bullish throwback. Like, is that it? Are we gonna roll back down, or is that just?" And then before I could even tweet anything or comment on it or talk about it, it just went 2K candle up, and
that's bullish.
It was very bullish. I mean, again, China FUD hit, they locked and loaded. Bloomberg came out, all caps. We dropped a little bit and then just nuked 2K. And on this candle up, I said, oh, damn. Like, we've got to be back to bull, at least in the short term. Now, since we broke down, I said, these levels, sure, maybe. but we've got to test. We've got to have that debate. We've got to have that argument. So I've been waiting. And there was an interesting kind of thing. Like I notice myself as a trader, I'm often, early or late or get shaken out of good ideas. And so I thought it was interesting. And this is why I was just uncomfortable going to bed last night, because through all of this, I was playing what I thought was the right side of the market, where I was, thinking sell my longs here. I was adding on these dips. I was playing the fib pong, and it was all good. And I was generally bullish to the upside from this pennant. And then I got shaken out of my long here. And so when it recovered a bit, I was like, oh dear God, that was it. I was like, I did the thing again. I got into my long. It was a great position to be in. It was the right idea, but I just got shaken out for a manial, stop loss hitting, take the loss. And then it's like, oh God, now we're going to go up. So I didn't waste too much time aping back in this morning, just catching myself on that. And again, the sooner I FOMO back in, the less risk I have to the lows. And that's sort of what I was thinking this morning when I just kind of blindly shoved at like 34.5, 35. Like I didn't love it, but I just said, I just got this good feeling. And the other thing is, I moved those stables over to Hxro, like a decent, maybe 1/3 of my port back up here, and just thought the reason I did that is so I can really be a little more apey with what I'm still taking risks on.
And here's, as confidence continues to return, you were talking about that $2,000 candle earlier and how like it just kind of came out of left field. Like where the fuck did that come from? Because that certainly doesn't fit the dynamic of what's been happening in the market.
Yeah.
There is money on the sidelines, and as more and more confidence returns, you're going to see more things like that. And I think that's the best sign that you can look for, for the bull to be back, is these things where it looks bearish, where you just look at it and your stomach drops and you're just like, oh, here we go again, against all odds. Like, it's like, boom, we're going up actually.
Yeah. I mean, we're up $5,400 today from the lows. And the one thing, I was looking for, if I was going to call like a local bottom on this move, was first the buy volume, and second, a pretty strong move, not going to be letting too many people in. And yesterday was definitely, and I'm just looking, inside my own sort of vision and feel for the market. Yesterday was definitely like oh fuck, I guess we are going down, pennant broke down. And so there was this sort of a giving up in the market. And then for us to just make a 5K day out of it and, see the biggest buy volume we've had in really like weeks and weeks and weeks. That to me, it just speaks to like the squeeze. Now, I don't know if, it's like bull market, bear market, are we going higher? I don't care. But what I do know is that the dynamic after a big bull to come straight down and just go straight, like I wasn't buying that. I was going to be shocked if that happened. Said as much in the newsletter yesterday, just like it's not out of the question, but I really do expect to see some pain for the late bears. And there's a lot of people, average Joes, feeling very smug, sitting in their stable coins, basically being like, I'll wait to buy at, 20K, 25K, 12K. And I just don't see them having an easy ride. I think it may get there if people want to say, it's still possible. Okay. But to go straight there and not to have a bounce up here, especially with a country just adopting, it just doesn't make sense to me. So I do think,
it doesn't
regardless of what the next 5 months look like and what kind of lows we may see, if we do go and see some, I think the first move, especially after today's price action, is probably going to be squeeze the bears. And, all things aside from like the Bitfinex shorts, that's like the one anomaly that I'm like, oh, I don't know what to make of that. It doesn't fit what I'm thinking about.
For me, like I'm watching, if you put the yearly volume weighted average price on your chart, and TradingView's actually upgraded their VWAP indicator to where there's standard deviation bands around that. And if you look at those levels that are created by the standard deviation bands, they're super interesting. Right now we're about 2 sigma below the volume weighted average price. But interestingly enough, like I think we are going to rebound to that volume weighted average price, which currently sits around $46,000. Now where we go from there is up in the air, but I do think, at least for the coming weeks, that we will see a bit of bullish price action. We'll see how fast it happens. We'll see how short people are. We'll see how much money is on the sidelines. I will say this. Yeah. If this is just like, hey, that dip was fucking garbage, like this is going to be actually continuation, I think that fact will become obvious very, very, very quickly, and you guys will see the mood around here shift accordingly. everybody will be back to, full bull tard, like going crazy about it in a matter of weeks.
Well, that's the sick thing, is that the next time I'd consider shorting is right around when that starts to happen, right? When you get back up into those short reload zones, and it drives people nuts, and like, it doesn't help my following at all growing, because I'm always just, I'm not always counter to whatever, but like we get into these zones and it's probably thinking a little long. You get up into these highs, testing the highs, kind of like Ethereum, Bitcoin today. Nobody wants to hear about shorts when they're, Ethereum just cracked 7.5 and is looking like it might move higher. But that's especially these lazy markets, these kind of consolidating markets, that's what you get. So we'll see. If we get back up into a short reload zone on Bitcoin, you're going to hear all the analysts talking about 100K.
There are some really interesting gaps in that volume profile. I mean, it definitely doesn't have a unimodal distribution at all.
Yeah.
I mean, there's two large gaps in that volume profile. It does make me wonder, are we going to spend some time filling those gaps in? And especially this gap up top, where we're looking at really the gap is between, let's say, 54K to, around 50K. I feel like if the price action got back in this area, very, very quickly, that would be a condition to where, people would really, really regain confidence in the bull. And maybe it could be an idea to fade that. Can you imagine jumping up to that area, filling the gap, and then marking down and filling the gap below it? Just talking about max pain and playing with people's emotions, because 50 to 54K, right? We're going to 100K next week.
Yes.
We drop back into this lower gap in the volume profile, from 38 to 40, 46, 47K, and all of a sudden it's Bitcoin's going back to 19K. It's just kind of how it works.
Yet you get emotional, and you get these these big swings in opinion and emotion, and that's sort of what a lazy summer looks like to me, potentially, where we're just going to drift back up into those, and it probably happen pretty aggressively. If it's going to be a squeeze, you don't want to see it be too lazy, but that neither here nor there. When we get up there, if we do, there's certain things we'll be looking for, and you can actually see them here. You're going to want to see, if you're looking to play the fade and you're looking to short it, if you're wondering if there's more bear to come, you're going to want to look for, dying buy volume, rising sell volume, right, bearish divergence. And as it gets new highs, you want to see lower highs on all these momentum indicators. And we'll talk about that on the stream as it's happening over the next few weeks. But I do expect, and again, I'm not playing big fat leverage positions. I'm just trying to swing some spot exposure around. So, when I get really nasty bearish and I just think, okay, 41 here, 42 broke, I'm like, oh, I got to sell whatever spot Bitcoin I have left because this looks awful. And then we get into these reload zones and I think, okay, I can buy some of that back. So the one anomaly, the one thing I kind of fucked up, admittedly, was yesterday when I just took the stop on Monday. And then, thank God yesterday I was just fuck it, I'm buying some back, because this is not where I want to short. And that's essentially what I was doing by letting myself get stopped out above 30K. And we'll see. If I was a betting man, which I am, I'm betting that we squeeze higher over the next few weeks. And there's tons of reasons why that could happen, and lots of fundamentals to back that. And then we'll see, I think we're going to see a rise in dominance. I think this thing's due for a squeeze up. So a lot of that Bitcoin buying energy can even come from other altcoins. There's a huge amount of stables on exchanges right now. It just all makes sense. And it's also, we got Flo in here. Shout out to Flo in the chat. He says, what a bunch of clowns. It's not coming back. We are done. That's the sentiment that I'm seeing in a lot of circles. I have no idea who Flo is, if he's a longtime veteran analyst or if he's just kind of newer to crypto. But there is a sense of fuck this, it's just a fake out. It's going to go down again. And I think until that sentiment in the sort of masses changes to we're going to highs, that was just the big shakeout, I bought the dip. Until we start to hear that bull roaring back in, it's probably going to keep going higher. And that's probably when the fade comes in up in this short reload zone. That's my 2 cents. That's my guess. And that's how I'm positioned right now.
Let's head back to the what do we call it? The command center.
The old studio.
Yeah, the studio.
The studio.
Let's head back to the studio. I think a good way to end this. For me at least, I think that the biggest mistake that I've made this year, and it's always important to reflect, and even guys that have been around a long time, make mistakes. But for me, my biggest mistake was becoming complacent. And rather than, what I've always done very well is rotate, and that's being able to click that sell button, and then also being able to buy something else, and being able to do that quickly. I feel like I got complacent, I got allocated, and that complacency, ended up costing me money. So the way I'm playing this, at least, I do see a scenario to where we do see some upside on Bitcoin. I do think we're going to see a bit of recovery on DeFi. When this happens, I plan on doing a bit of shuffling. And I do want to have a percentage of my portfolio in stable coins, because if you look at one of the best buying opportunities of the year, we're talking, when the markets really, really went to fucking shit, we saw Curve dump to almost $1. Mm-hmm. Like, those were some insane buying opportunities. And I was sitting there just enjoying the drawdown, right? I didn't have this powder to where I could step in, buy those things, and then in just 3 days, be up 100, 150%. That's one of my biggest regrets. I really want to make sure that moving forward, while I still want to be a fundamental investor, I still want to feel like there's fundamentals to back the technicals. I do want to make sure that I'm not getting complacent, and I want to make sure that I'm carrying out these rotations. Like I've said 100 times, and I know you trade similarly, like, you don't have to sit there and get the 10x. You don't have to get the 15x. I mean, if you can get a 3x and roll that into a 2x, you're sitting right there at a 6x, and that's a way to protect your downside, and still get the same degree of upside with a higher probability.
Yeah, I actually picked that up from you this past year. Just the idea, the math behind the rotation game, which is something where, there's coins you just fall in love with and they start to pump, and you just think, this is the one, I'm in it. Why, don't overtrade it. Arguably Matic getting out at 45 cents. I was like, what a boss ass trade.
It'll kick you in the nuts sometimes.
Sometimes, right? And then, it shoots up to $2, becomes the talk of the town, and I wish I had it in my Matic bag. But generally speaking, yeah, I've been playing the rotation game this past year, really, since last summer when I heard you talking about it. I was like, yeah, that's a good point. Like, if I'm up multi-X on anything, I'm just going to start rotating it into. And look, ID, I gotta plug ID here today, because I never sold any. It has recovered its sort of low support that it lost during the heat last few weeks. They just announced a partnership with Polygon. I really think they're going to underpin the KYC and regulatory and possibly stablecoin ecosystem of a lot of platforms. Binance Smart Chain, Ethereum, Solana, Polygon, like whatever one you want to talk about, they're there, they're getting ready, and they are the only internationally regulated stablecoin ecosystem with full KYC and all that, and they can basically plug in. They're going to have their own L2 as well, Everchain. So I can't tell you how pumped I am for that. I haven't sold any. It's just sitting at the lows, and I just have to remind myself that through any of this bearish heat we've caught over the last few weeks, I'm like, still got my huge bag of ID. Like, that's my ticket, man. That's the one that I'm not fucking selling. For at least a little while. I've got to.
There's nothing wrong with having a ticket, 100%. Yeah, I mean, Rook's my ticket,
And just to be clear, when people say, like, I'm super bullish on this one and it is my biggest bag, it is still only like 15% of my portfolio. So don't, anyone watching is like, yeah, RT's all in on that. No. And if it disappeared, I'd be very disappointed. I never write that off like as it's not possible that I'm wrong. But it would sting, but it's not going to wreck me. So never put yourself in a position to get wrecked, no matter how bullish you are. So it looks really good. In fact, it's close to me wanting to add again. I just want to sort of wait and see some buy volume bubble up.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
But that one's got the fundamental pick for me. I'd say, because like after Matic, I had some pain. I made some good money. It was probably my best trade of the year, but it was still just like, everyone's talking about it now, like I thought they would be, and I don't have my bag anymore. I can't brag. I can't sit on that. What would have been a silly gain. So then I say, okay, get over it. Moving on. Find the next one. What's your next fundamental idea, RT, that you think that I can like load up on? And anyways, here it is. So we'll see. I don't think it's going to be months, but I can at least say that I didn't sell the dip.
I think we'll be back on I think we'll be back relatively soon. You know, and I am cautiously optimistic that the bottom is on Bitcoin. I don't know if you guys saw. You know, I did some work with Facebook's profit algorithm. You know, which is it's a forecasting algorithm. You can use it to forecast all sorts of different things. And you know, I used it on the Bitcoin price. You know, there's tons of data on Bitcoin, right? So it's effectively able to get in there and, you know, look at the seasonality and historical trends and, you know, how things play out. And it is really interesting. It almost looks like Bollinger Bands, right? You know, where you've got this kind of midline and then you've got an upper bound and a lower bound. You know, anything out when the price action gets outside of the model, it's always been representative of the top. But those midlines are super interesting because they, you know, consistently act as support and resistance. And here we are down at, you know, 32K. That's exactly where the midline of the model is. So it is really interesting, you know, seeing that and also starting to see the narrative shift at this level, starting to see some kind of rebound at this level. So once again, cautiously optimistic. You know, I went back, I've evaluated my performance this year. I can't complain at all. Would I like to be at the balance I was at 2 months ago? Absolutely. But at the same time, I think in December 2020, if I knew that I'd be where I was right now, I probably wouldn't believe you. Or somebody told me that. So for me, moving forward, it's about not being complacent. It's about playing the rotation game. It's about, you know, having stables that are yield farming that I can access to buy a dip should that dip come. It's just about doing everything that I do, but being more active about it, being more intelligent about it, and protecting that downside. And I think right now, you know, everybody listening to this should look back at the last, you know, 3, 4 months, 5 months, you know, year, and they should be asking themselves like, hey, you know, before the next opportunity in this market presents itself, because, you know, I do think that we aren't done. I do think that there is more opportunity to come. You know, we are going to see the sentiment shift at some point, whether that's next week, whether that's next month, you know, whether that's this August, this October. At some point, we're going to get back into bubble mode. How are you going to play the next bubble? How are you going to maximize your upside? And how are you going to keep as much of that as possible? Very important things to ask yourself.
Yeah, those are all the right things to be thinking about during what we could call a quiet time in the market, because price really, you know, is trading right where it is today, like 3 weeks ago. So we haven't really moved other than up and down a bit through that. You know, well said. I don't think I could add much to that other than that I think we just saw the bottom on Bitcoin. And there was people that called it a little earlier. There's people that have called later. I don't really need to call it. That's what I think. I think sentiment sometimes will take a little price action to change fully. But it'll be gradually then suddenly. And God, I'll see you at 47K, man. I think we're heading up. Big first stop 37.7. That's going to be that pennant downtrend line. Second stop 40K horizontal. But if we break that, that's a couple weeks away, perhaps. So really excited to see that, guys. I'll be back on Friday solo for Hxro Labs Live to go through the charts. We'll see how Bitcoin looks then. I wouldn't be shocked if it's up at 40. I would be shocked if it made new lows by then. I think we do need a good old squeeze here. So let's try to enjoy the ride. Look through the charts on Friday together, see if we can find some ideas. But for what it's worth, I'm going to end with this thought. I think we're heading into a new liquidity cycle, and that's going to start with Bitcoin, just like it did last year, and that's going to eventually rotate into some of the other stuff. I think everything but Bitcoin's probably due for a little reset here. So we'll take it for what it is. It's just a thought, just a prediction, and those usually don't make you much money. So let's keep trading the setups, guys. Let's keep hunting the coins. Thanks for joining us today. Rob and Dan will be back next week. They promised, but both coming off Miami, lots of work to catch up on, and both were unable to make it today, unfortunately. But
hey, I'm hungover too, and I'm here.
I know. I gave them shit. I was messaging them at 10 a.m. So, but we are going to have the full squad here back next Wednesday, guys. And until next time, always play from a position of strength, guys. Take care.